This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. Consider this your vitamin or supplement for your mind and your heart. And wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, would you mind downloading and subscribing to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom? And if you would leave a rating and a brief written review, it would be very helpful. Thank you for doing that. I want to talk today about something that will visit everyone, and it seems to especially visit leaders, and that is the subject of disappointment. Everyone faces disappointments. How do you handle them? How do you get through it? How do you navigate the disappointments that come your way? I'm going to give you 9 steps, 9 things to think about when you're facing a disappointment. Are you ready? Let's not get disappointed. Let's listen to the 9. The first one is it as bad as it seems at first? Now, I've had many disappointments from early times in my life all the way through my times of serving in different capacities. And I know that it's almost overwhelming when that disappointment, that bad thing happens, and our emotions get out of kilter. We think this is the end. We think we will never make it through, that this is, for all practical purposes, the end. Well, I'm not talking about at that moment. Ask yourself, is it as bad as it seems at first? Because when you first hear it, you first receive it, you first experience it, you can't imagine things being much worse. We lose perspective in that moment. But give yourself hours, a day, a few days, and then as you begin to process and determine how you're going to handle it, how you're going to move forward, the first place I start is, well, now from this perspective of a few hours, days, maybe a week or a month, is it really as bad as it seemed at first? I mean, you can't do it initially. I understand that you have to regain your composure. But whether it is a relationship that went badly, whether it's a tremendous financial loss, a personal pain, you lost your job, a health situation. I mean, I could sit here for a long time and name various disappointing scenarios that we're all going to go through. But it will help you if you kind of begin to work it. Yes, it's bad, but it's not as bad as it seemed at first. And maybe there are some things that I can do. Initially, just kind of, you don't have to even do anything about it at this point. Simply asking yourself, well, it's bad, but it could be worse. There could be other things. So let's get it, which is number 2, put it in perspective. When I was young, it didn't seemingly take much to really disappoint me, and I had to put it in perspective. Well, in just recent days, I've gone through a couple of pretty disappointing situations in our lives, my wife and I, with some family, some other kinds of things. And as painful as it is at the moment, you have to put it in perspective. The way I like to differentiate is with disappointment. Is it a problem? Usually a problem has a solution or several solutions, or there are at the minimum some things that you can work on to make it better. Sometimes there are things that are just facts of life. It's the way it is. And you can try, and perhaps you have tried, and you're not going to change it. So you have to differentiate between a problem and a fact of life. A fact of life, there just isn't anything you can do. If someone breaks a relationship with you, if someone refuses your phone calls, if someone refuses to talk with you, and you've done everything within your power to try to make amends and to try to restore the relationship, then you just have to put it in perspective. Allow the Holy Spirit to search your heart to tell you if there are things that you could do differently, but put it in perspective. If you can change it, change it. If you can get better, get better. But if there's nothing more that you can do, then you just have to accept it as a fact of life, put it in perspective, and move on. And that would be take us to number 3. The third thing that I try to remember when I'm going through a time of disappointment is to remember that disappointment happens to everyone. When I'm going through a disappointment, I sort of get this whiny attitude, at least internally, like, why do these things always happen to me? Am I the only person in the world that these kinds of bad things ever happen? Well, I've worked with people my entire adult life, and I can tell you this. There is no home in the world that hasn't experienced disappointment. There's no person in the world who hasn't had a disappointing event, a disappointing experience. Now, this doesn't help you to solve it, but again, it's a part of that perspective gaining, in that I'm not being picked on. I'm a member of the human race, and disappointments are a common theme, a common experience from all humans. Now, as you're processing your way through the disappointment, the fourth thing that I do is I ask myself, what can I learn from this experience? Never waste any experience, good, bad, or indifferent. There's always something we could learn. There's always some new bit of knowledge. There's always some way that we can really learn and gain value from an experience. Maybe there's something that I did that precipitated this. Maybe if I would have done this, maybe I will learn how to handle this kind of a situation the next time it arises. Never lose an opportunity to learn something. You don't just learn in school. You don't just learn from reading books or hearing a lecture. You can learn from the things that you and I go through, and disappointment can teach us some very valuable lessons. Make sure you don't miss out and not learn what you should be learning. The fifth thing that I do is I take positive action. I have discovered that one of the best things you can do going through a negative situation, going through a heartbreak and a disappointment, is rather than just spiraling into a negative vacuum, take a positive action. It may be that you have witnessed a behavior in someone that you don't want to be ever in evidence in your life, and so make up your mind you're going to take a positive action. Maybe if it's a relational situation that became fractured, frayed, or even broken, maybe your positive action is to tend to the relationships in your life. If it was a presentation you were making and it didn't go the way you wanted it to, or it didn't work out the way that you intended to, make note and do things differently the next time. But so that it doesn't become a negative anchor weighing you down, make up your mind when you do sort of an experience of what can I learn when you're kind of evaluating. Take a positive action in the midst of negativity. Now, the sixth thing that I would do is sometimes this leads to, is there a habit that I need to change? Am I doing something that caused this to happen? Is there an attitude that I possess? Are there things that I'm doing that are irritating? Are there some habits that aren't helping me? They're not making me more productive or successful. This would be a good time to say, I'm going to change a habit, break it down into the small steps that we talk about continually on Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, and just say, if there's a habit that I can change that would help me so that I won't face as many disappointments in this area of my life, I want to learn to do that. The seventh thing that I do is, and I say, learn to laugh. Now, when you are first presented with a disappointment, it is anything but a laughing matter. And nothing is worse than some well-intentioned friend trying to get you to see the humor in the calamity while you are just discovering the calamity. But every time in my life, having walked through a disappointment and worked my way through it, I know that healing has taken place. I know that I've gotten over it. I know that I have moved on when I can look back and learn to laugh. I say it often. He or she who learns to laugh at themselves will never run out of material. Don't laugh at others, laugh at yourself. But find laughter does a lot of things. In the Bible, we're told that a merry heart does good like a medicine. And one thing that laughter helps us with immensely is it really relieves and even breaks tension. And so when you're kind of in a lull, a funk, kind of discouraged, maybe a little bit depressed, learning to laugh is a healthy option. And so when you get past it a little bit and you're kind of evaluating all of it, maybe not today, but one day you'll be able to laugh at something to do with all of this situation you found yourself in. The eighth part of what I do when I'm facing a disappointment is I ask myself, what is the takeaway? Now, this is a lot like, what have I learned? And this is a lot like taking a positive action and even the changing a habit. But for a takeaway, I'm talking about a general principle that I have learned by going through this disappointment that can be applied in other situations and circumstances. And it's just going to kind of be a takeaway that I file either mentally or wherever, that when faced with this kind of a situation, here is how I'm going to react. Here's how I'm going to do that. Already in one of the disappointments that I've gone through, I've discovered a couple of takeaways of things I would do differently, some adjustments that I would make, which is my ninth one. My ninth one is continually make adjustments. Just because you've experienced a disappointment does not mean you need a total extreme makeover. Doesn't mean you need to blow everything up, go back to square one, and start over. But a disappointment is a marvelous road marker along life's highway that reminds me that all of life I am continually needing to make adjustments. Adjustments in my attitude, my spirit, the way I conduct myself, the way I treat others, the way I get ready, the way I organize myself. All of life is about making continual adjustments. When you set your year goals, you're not going to go through that perfectly the next 365 days. You're going to have to calibrate and make adjustments. And disappointments are great teaching opportunities, learning experiences for us, teaching us how to make adjustments. Put it in perspective. Remember, it happens to everyone. Ask the learning questions. What can I learn? What habit needs to be changed? What is the takeaway? What are the adjustments? I'm going to laugh at this and I'm going to put it all in perspective. I pray that that will happen in your life as you experience the disappointments that naturally come to all of us. You've been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, and productivity, and a whole lot more. Consider this your vitamin or supplement for your mind and heart. Would you please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, leave a rating and a brief written review. And the takeaway today, leader, is whatever you're experiencing today, take a positive action and move forward. Until next time, this is Dr. Ron saying have a great and blessed day.